Hi, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Tales at 2. Once again, my name is Miss Rachel, and thank you for joining us today. I do want to say, since my broadcast yesterday kind of cut out a little bit, I do want to say thank you very, very much for all the very generous donations we've had so far. They're going a very long way to help us out, keep our doors open, keep our animals fed, and everything else. And just a reminder, any donations this week from last Friday to this coming Friday will be matched by one of our board members, dollar for dollar, up to $5,000. So today, now is a great time to donate, and thank you very, very much for considering it and for donating with us. Okay. So today we are, well, it's a little bit wet and rainy today, so I figured why not take advantage of it, and we're going to do a little lesson on watersheds and water cycles. All right, so we are out on our lake right now, and we water cycle as it happens. Oh, just a reminder too, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask and type them in during the broadcast today. I do love questions. I work best off of them. It's so weird doing this without a face-to-face thing. So anyway, so we have our water cycle. The basic water cycle starts with water that's kind of pooled around something. It's puddled in an area, in a body of water like this lake. It can be a big one, it can be a little one, it can be big as a lake, big as the ocean, it can be as small as a little puddle or a little cup in your backyard. All right, that water is liquid, it is collected, so that's the collection phase of the water cycle. What happens next? All of that water is going to heat up, it's going to start moving around. It's going to go from a liquid form into a gaseous form, into a gas. It's actually going to turn into water vapor. That process is called evaporation. So that's when the water, you really can't see it, but that's when the water warms up enough and it starts rising, it floats up. Okay? Now eventually it's going to make its way all the way up into the sky, and that's when we have our condensation phase. When it means when it condenses, that the water just kind of starts to cool down, it starts to collect in a cloud. It's still water vapor at this point, it's still gas. So that water is going to kind of gather together. It's going to create clouds. It's going to create things like fog, low-lying clouds, you know, just kind of hanging around. All of that is water vapor. That's all part of the water cycle. And then after that, what happens next? We all know. It happened yesterday, that's for sure. We had some really, really big rainstorms yesterday. So that comes down when the clouds have so much water in them that the water vapors start to meet together and they start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they turn into water droplets. They condense back up into liquid water. Well, when the cloud can't hold any more liquid water, that's when it comes down. And it comes down in the form of rain, or snow, or sleet, or hail. Any of those things, plus anything else you can think of where water is coming out of the sky. That all encompasses the word precipitation. So all of that, the rain, the sleet, the hail, all of that comes down from the sky. That's called precipitation. Now what happens when it hits the ground again? Well, then it's going to collect all over again. So that whole thing. So when it comes down, it's going to run off into a lake, into a stream, into the ocean, into a river. It's going to collect again and then go back up. All that whole thing. That whole entire thing, that's the water cycle. Okay? So I wanted to give you that overview because what we're going to go into now is something called watershed. Now watershed is really, really important, so I wanted to make sure we got that a little bit clear. Okay? Do we have any questions so far?
Cool. Not yet. Just Hunter says hi, Miss Rachel.
Hi Hunter, how are you? So we are going to do watersheds. Now this right here, this fun fancy model that I have on here, this is called an enviroscape. And what an enviroscape is a watershed. I have a goose friend in the back and couple of our geese friends in the rehab and the wildlife housing area, so they're going to be a little bit noisy. It is a no turtle day. There are no turtles on our log today, but there is a goose. So I'm going to call this a one goose day. So anyway, this is our EnviroScape. This is our watershed model. And basically what it is a model of a development of a house. There's a farm here. There's a factory over here. There's a whole bunch of different parts. But this is a watershed. Now a watershed is the area of land where anything that falls into it is going to roll into a body of water. Okay? And like I said, that body of water can be really, really little, or it can be really, really big. So here at Cedar Run, if you visit our nature center or if you visit our wildlife housing area or anything like that, all of the water that falls on the land there is eventually going to roll into our lake. So all of that land is in our lake's watershed. Okay? I believe it's called Cedar Lake. We'll call it Cedar Lake for now. Okay? I know Cedar Run does flow into it. So we do have a run called Cedar Run. A run is just another name for a stream or a brook or a creek or something like that. Okay? So we have all the water flows into Cedar Lake. Okay? Now, some watersheds are smaller, so some watersheds collect into bigger watersheds. So if we look on our model here, okay, we have, what do you think this blue bit is here? Okay. That blue bit is definitely the water, right? That's where the water is going to travel. Okay. We know that water always flows downhill. So in this case, we have our water coming down. I'm actually going to spray some water onto it. Let's see. So we have our water coming down. It might be a little bit difficult for you to see, but you can probably see the water moving downhill a little bit. Can you see that? Okay. Now the water that's coming down, I'm only putting it into this one stream's watershed. Over here. So all of the water that's falling down on top of this mountain, it's going right down into this watershed. Okay? Now this watershed is going to flow all the way down into this bigger lake. Okay? Or maybe, in Cedar Run's case, that would be something like the Delaware. All of our water eventually is going to go into the Delaware River. Kind of cool, huh? So all of this water is going to go down into the Delaware River. So let's say this is Cedar Run up here. All that water is going down. Well, then there's this water over here. There's this stream coming down over here. Now, this stream is not Cedar Run's stream. This might be, what's the lake across the road? Is it Barton's Lake?
I don't know.
I forget. I think it's Barton's Lake. Barton's Lake? Something like that. Let's say there's another stream over there. Okay? So that water is also going to go down into the Delaware River. Okay? So all of that is actually all in the Delaware River's watershed. So this whole area would be in the Delaware River's watershed. Parts of it all come together. Okay? It's a little like if you hold your hand up. Okay? If you hold your hand up, it's a little bit chilly right now, but if you have your hand, you have each little finger is going to come down into the palm of your hand. And then the palm of your hand is going to come down into your arm, and then your arm is going to come into your body. Okay? So if you think of your hand like a watershed, this is one watershed, this is another, might be the pointer finger watershed, might be the thumb watershed, you have the pinky watershed. All that's going to come down into the pool that is your palm. Okay? Maybe that's Palm Lake. Okay? And then all that is going to flow down the river of your arm and then down into the ocean of your body. Okay? So that's just one way to look at different watersheds. Now, watersheds are really, really important because we need to know where our water goes and where our water comes from. All of the water that's here eventually is going to go through the water cycle, but it is important to know where it comes from. People need to know where they go or where the water goes because you usually don't want to build in an area where there's going to be a lot of water. Okay? It's called building on a floodplain. Okay? If you tried to build your house right here, do you think it might get flooded? It probably would. You might have some unstable areas. You might get some washout. If you get a lot of rain, maybe your house might move. That happens in some cases. So people need to know where these watersheds go. The other thing is that all of the water that we get is coming from somewhere. So we all live in a watershed. We all live downstream. Okay? Now, the animals that use water include us. They include things like ducks and geese and deer and raccoons and birds of all kinds. And I'm sure you can name many, many, many other kinds of animals that need the water. Okay? So water is a resource that we share with a lot of other animals, with a lot of living organisms need it to survive. Okay? So knowing where our water goes is very, very important. We have a dam here at Cedar Run. Okay? That dam makes Cedar Lake. Without that dam, we probably wouldn't have as many turtles or geese hanging around here. But if we didn't have that dam, we might have a lot more frogs hanging out. We might have some different insects that like streams instead of lakes. So we need to take that into consideration when we're talking about where our water goes and how it all works together. Okay? Now, there might be some questions on pollution. You might be thinking about that. We're going to do another video of that in a little while. Okay? But I want to show you some things that you guys can do at home too. You guys can actually create your own water cycle. Do you know that? This is actually a really neat little experiment. And it's all it takes, something you already have in your house, just a plastic bag. Okay? You take this plastic bag and you pour some water into it. You pour some water into it. Maybe leave a little bit of air because you want the water to move around. And seal it up nice and tight. Okay? Now, you want to make sure that your bag doesn't leak. I'm glad my bag doesn't leak. So then, all you would do is tape this up onto a window where it's going to get a lot of sun, and you'll be able to watch the water evaporate. Well, you might not be able to see the water evaporate, but you'll be able to see the water start to condense on the sides of the bag inside. And then when it condenses enough, when the droplets get heavy enough, then they'll start to drip back down. Okay? If you have a terrarium at home or an aquarium that's closed, you might also see this activity. Okay? You might see it in the shower if you guys take really hot showers. You might see the steam hanging out in your bathroom afterwards. That's a cloud. That's condensation. Okay? So that's how you make your own little water cycle in a bag. Okay? Now, there's one more thing I want to show you can make, because you guys can actually make your own watershed as well. And this is a really fun activity, and I've done it a couple times. But for this one, you're going to need a spray bottle. Okay, so something to spray water with. You could use droplets if you want, but a spray bottle will work better. Okay. Other thing you're going to need is some regular old paper. You can use any kind of paper. You might even want to experiment and try different kinds, see what works best. And you're going to need some markers. In this case, we're going to start with blue. So what you do to make your own watershed, you take the paper and you crumple it up. You don't want to crumple it too tight. You want to make some hills and you want to make some valleys. Okay? Just like you might have on an actual watershed. Okay? So then, when you crumple your paper up, it might look a little like a mountainside. Okay? You might see some lower spots in it. You might see some higher spots. So then what you want to do with your marker is start tracing where those low spots are and where you think water might start to flow down. Okay? So wherever those low spots, and if you see like a lot of low spots coming down here, maybe that's where your lake is, and maybe you fill that in. Okay? So I'm going to do a couple more here. I think some water's going to flow down there, maybe over here, and then on this side, I think there's going to be a big lake here. Maybe some places coming down here. Now, I might be wrong. I might have totally misplaced where my rivers and my lakes are going to be. But that's okay. Because the next part, you are actually going to spray it. And try and see exactly where the water goes. Now I used watercolor markers, so everything should run just a little bit. And you'll be able to see where the water collects and where it pools. Okay? What do you think? Did I do a good job? Now this seemed to collect the paper really, really easily, so maybe try a bit of plastic. Maybe if you have a tablecloth, you might want to put some things underneath of it. Okay? Maybe you want to try this in a bin so you can really soak it. Okay? Any way you want to do it, that's really fine. Okay? And then there's one more activity. Because it's a rainy, rainy day like today, there's one more really cool thing that you can do with the paper. Since you have the papers and the marker and the spray bottle, you can make rain paintings. If you've never done rain paintings are really cool, simple little designs and drawings. You just do a whole bunch of random squiggles. You can do a whole picture if you want. Oh, there's not much ink in this one. Make sure your markers have a lot of ink, otherwise it's not going to work as well. Well, we'll see. We'll try it with these ones and see. Okay. Fill in some of this and we'll see what happens. So then, when you've got all your splotches in, then you take your paper, you spray it down, and you see how the water spreads out the markers. Okay? And then when it gets the way you like it, then you can just stop and let it spread and let it soak in. And I will say, the more ink you have on it, the better. Because you want a lot of ink on it so it'll really, really spread. So take your time drawing your pictures. Okay? All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you today. It's rather chilly out here, so we're gonna head inside. But I hope that everyone stays safe. I thank everybody for joining us today. And if you have any questions, if we've missed you on this, you can definitely post them in the comments. We'll get back to you as we can. Once again, Cedar Run, the Nature Center is closed, but our trails are still open. Our wildlife housing area is still open, and our rehab is still taking in animals. So if you have any questions, please give us a call, and please come down and enjoy, hopefully when it's a nicer day and the water cycle isn't in full swing. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.